On the day of my rebirth, Oswald Hathor handed me a voluntary donation form for corneas to sign. As long as you sign, we will have the wedding tomorrow. I picked up the agreement and tore it to pieces. Oswald was shocked, his jaw almost dropping. Are you crazy? I looked at the shredded paper on the ground and brushed off the dust on my hands. Oswald Hathor, I've changed my mind. I won't marry you. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. He grabbed my arm. Are you kidding me? I looked at him and said understandingly, you've been in love with Ella Kimbrough for many years, and I don't want to be hated by standing between you two. I wish you a long and happy life together and have children soon. In my previous life, I impulsively agreed to marry him because I liked Oswald too much. He took away my corneas. After marriage, he treated me coldly and often physically abused me because of Ella's instigation. Later, I got pregnant, but he wasn't happy about it. On the day my amniotic fluid broke, I wanted him to take me to the hospital. When I called him, Ella said he was taking a shower. I was so angry that I had difficulty giving birth. In the end, I died on the cold operating table without even seeing my own child. In this new life, how could I repeat the same mistakes? After leaving the Hathor house, I took a car and found the rival of Oswald, Cyrus Sanford. I pushed open the office door, and he was lazily sitting on the sofa. Cyrus was wearing a white shirt with distinct features. His legs were straight and slender, and his height of 6 feet and 1 inch gave off a strong presence. I didn't know how I was blind enough to fall for Oswald in my previous life. Maybe he had cast a spell on me. Although the Hathor family was a prominent family in each city, it was still inferior compared to the Sanford family. If I married Cyrus Sanford, it would probably make Oswald Hathor furious. Mr. Sanford, long time no see. Cyrus supported his forehead, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes when he saw me. Weren't you going to marry Oswald? Why are you here? I've changed my mind. I don't want to marry him anymore. Upon hearing this news, Cyrus sat up. You suddenly changed your mind? Neither in family background nor looks is he comparable to you. I was blind to fall for him in the first place, but now I'm awake. Cyrus furrowed his brows slightly. So, are you interested in me now? I didn't deny it. Yes, Miss Medlin, you're quite interesting. The whole city knows that Oswald and I have long-standing grievances. Wouldn't it be a big joke if I took over the woman Oswald doesn't like? Mr. Sanford, you're mistaken. I'm the one who called off the engagement, not him. Cyrus's gaze fixed on me. What's your purpose in coming to me? I want to bring Oswald Hathor down. I couldn't tell what Cyrus was thinking. He held his teacup and remained silent for a long time. After a moment, he asked, when is the wedding? I smiled. Tomorrow. The news of the engagement between Oswald and I had already caused a sensation in the city. If the groom at tomorrow's wedding were to be someone else, Oswald would become the laughingstock of the entire city. Cyrus looked at me. A woman's revenge is truly terrifying. I provocatively said, what's wrong, Mr. Sanford? Are you scared? Suddenly, he pulled me into his arms. My heart raced and my face turned hot. I almost let out a soft cry. His lips slowly approached my face, getting closer and closer. Could it be? Is he going to kiss me? Nervously, I closed my eyes. The next second, I felt a warm breath near my ear, tickling. His voice was pleasant. Wait for me to pick you up tomorrow. I let out a sigh of relief and opened my eyes, only to find him smiling. Why is your face so red? Did you think I was going to kiss you? Rest assured, I have principles. I won't cross any boundaries before the wedding. I was so angry that my face turned red. This guy was clearly playing with me. Blushing, I picked up my bag and ran out of his office. When I got home, as soon as I opened the door, I was slapped hard. You little troublemaker, the Hathor family just called and said you want to cancel the wedding? I covered my face in grievance. Dad, why did you hit me? Jason Medlin pointed at me and scolded. The invitations have already been sent out, and you say you want to cancel the wedding. Now the Hathor family is completely offended. I looked at him in disbelief. He never considered my feelings. In the previous life, they received a huge dowry from the Hathor family and never asked if I was doing well. They only called me when they needed help from the Hathor family. Do you know that he wants to give my cornea to Ella Kimbrough? My dad's fierce gaze softened a bit when he heard this, but my stepmother stepped forward and advised. The Hathor family said as long as you agree to donate, they will agree to any conditions. Kathy Tonge is really shameless. She wants to sell me off. Gina Medlin also said, donating a cornea is not a big deal. They can talk so easily because they're not the ones donating. I looked at Gina and said, you are right, then you go ahead and donate. It doesn't matter who donates. Cornea donations don't require matching, so if I marry Oswald, I'll be worry-free. When Kathy heard me say this, she was furious. Why are you so malicious? Gina is your sister. She's still so young. How can she endure for the next few decades? My dad also chimed in, that's right, your sister is still young. It turns out they know that donating corneas means losing sight forever. They just see me as a sacrificial pawn for their own interests. What about me? Have you ever thought about how miserable my next few decades will be? I finally understood. His heart only has room for my stepmother and my half-sister. A flicker of guilt flashed in my dad's eyes. Suppressing his anger, he advised, we have already informed our relatives and friends. If you don't get married, our family's reputation will be lost. My stepmother also chimed in, April Medlin, you are so selfish. You only think about yourself and never consider the family. I replied calmly, the wedding will proceed as planned tomorrow. What does that mean? My dad looked at me in astonishment. At this moment, someone knocked on the door. My dad opened the door and a middle-aged man in a suit walked in. He smiled and asked, may I ask who is Miss Medlin? My dad looked at the well-dressed man and politely asked, what's the matter? I am here to deliver the betrothal gifts on behalf of our young master. The butler waved his hand and the people behind him carried the betrothal gifts into the living room. The living room was filled with various collectible porcelain and jewelry. It was obvious that Cyrus was behind this. My dad smiled and asked, who is your young master? The butler replied, Cyrus Sanford. When my dad heard his name, he was so scared that his legs went weak. The butler asked, is Miss Medlin here? I was about to step forward, but Kathy pushed Gina forward. My dad immediately introduced, this is my daughter. I stood quietly aside, watching their performance. At this moment, the butler looked at Gina up and down, with a frown on his face. This is not the person our young master wants. Kathy stepped forward and said, what do you mean? This is Miss Medlin. The butler asked, what is her name? My dad replied, Gina Medlin. The butler smiled awkwardly, I made a mistake. Our young master wants to marry April Medlin. The expressions on their faces were full of embarrassment. I stepped forward and said, I am April Medlin. The butler politely bowed to me, Madam. The young master prepared the betrothal gifts hastily. If you have any requests, you can make them later, and we will add them for you. I looked at the things in the room. Cyrus really spared no expense. My dad patted my arm and whispered, when did you meet Cyrus, without telling us? Marriage is always decided by the elders. Aren't you acting recklessly? He smiled and said, my daughter has always been willful. We only found out about this now when it's such a big matter. As for the betrothal gifts, we still need to. I knew he was starting to have other ideas. I can't let them have their way. I smiled and said, please take these betrothal gifts back. I appreciate his intentions. When I said this, my dad stared at me angrily and stomped his foot in frustration. What are you trying to do? The butler was a bit puzzled. Madam, are you dissatisfied? You misunderstood. I am very satisfied. Our Medlin family is small and humble. Being able to marry into the Sanford family is already a great honor. If I accept these betrothal gifts, outsiders might think I have ulterior motives. The butler looked at me with admiration in his eyes. Being with Cyrus, I was never after money. No wonder the young master likes you. It's rare to see a girl like you who is not greedy for vanity. My dad opened his mouth to speak, but the butler's words stopped him. Mr. Medlin, you have raised your daughter well. Your family values are pure. I wanted to give the butler a thumbs up. His words put my dad in an awkward position. My dad, who cared about reputation, could only swallow his anger. They watched helplessly as the butler and his men carried all the things out. It felt like their hearts were bleeding. After the butler left, my dad slammed the table in anger. How can you reject everything and let them take it back? That's right. If you don't want it, we'll take it. I told my dad that I am going to marry into the Sanford family, so there will be everything in the future. Why rush things now? Shallow-minded people can only see what's in front of them. With a few words, my dad fell into the trap. April made sense. Let them have a higher opinion of us. The next morning, Cyrus arranged for a makeup artist to come and dress me up early. When I put on the wedding dress, I almost didn't recognize myself in the mirror. At that moment, the sound of a car horn came from downstairs. Cyrus was wearing a black tuxedo, his tall and slender figure resembling a star. When he saw me upstairs, his eyes lit up. You look really beautiful today, he said. I took the initiative to link my arm with his and got into the wedding car. The guests at the wedding venue were already in their seats, including the reporters I had arranged in advance. After the wedding started, the pastor asked, April Medlin, do you willingly marry this handsome gentleman in front of you? Regardless of sickness or health, poverty or wealth, will you hold his hand and grow old together? I looked into Cyrus's eyes, about to say I do. But then, Oswald's voice came from afar. She doesn't want to, he said, with a stern face as he walked up to the stage and tried to pull me away. Cyrus pulled me into his arms. What are you doing, Mr. Hafer? Oswald stared at me fiercely. April Medlin, even if you're angry with me, you shouldn't marry him. Did he still think I was angry? He really is an ignorant man. A smirk formed at the corner of my mouth. Mr. Sanford is more handsome and has a better figure than you. Why can't I marry him? This made him furious. He is cunning and deceitful, not a suitable match for you. I sneered. At least he won't force me to donate my corneas. Compared to your cunning, he is much kinder. Other guests overheard our conversation and began to discuss it. Oh my God, isn't it illegal to have living people donate corneas? I heard that Oswald has been in love with Ella for many years, and Ella became blind in a fire. What a scumbag. He doesn't care about anyone as long as he can save his beloved woman. Oswald was being scolded by those people. Cyrus held me tightly around the waist, his gaze sharp as he stared at Oswald. If Mr. Hafer is here to cause trouble, I will have to call someone. Oswald, you better leave now, or else if something happens to Ella later, don't blame me. Oswald clenched his fists. April Medlin, you will regret this. And I did regret it. I regretted being blind for so many years. I woke up too late. Cyrus called a few security guards and threw him out. I waved to the reporters, signaling them to follow and interview him outside. Cyrus gave me a thumbs up. You are amazing. Even the reporters are ready. I laughed heartily. This time Oswald has really embarrassed himself. Because of Oswald's disturbance, the wedding banquet was also ruined. After a simple ceremony, the MC ended it. When I returned to the room, I was completely exhausted. I lay on the bed and quickly turned on the computer. Sure enough, Oswald was trending on social media. Oswald cheats on 2 women, forces his fiancée to donate corneas to Ella, confirmed scumbag. The comments below were all criticizing him, and there were quite a few people supporting me. I was excitedly dancing around when Cyrus's hand landed on my shoulder. What are you looking at? So happy? I turned the computer screen towards him. He glanced at it and said to me, aren't you afraid that by humiliating Oswald like this, he will seek revenge on you? I hadn't thought about that, so I held his arm and acted coquettishly. You are my husband, you will help me, right? Cyrus pinched my cheek. How did I end up with such a mischievous person like you? You caused such a big trouble, and now you want me to solve the issue. I sheepishly stuck out my tongue. You have no chance to regret. We've already received the marriage certificate, no returns. My husband is the most powerful man in the city. Should I be afraid of Oswald? Cyrus smiled at my flattery. The next moment, he grabbed my arms and pressed me down. What are you doing? I asked, my breath hitching, my heart racing nervously. I helped you solve such a big problem. Don't I deserve a real reward? Before I could respond, he kissed me. I closed my eyes tightly, feeling a cool sensation. I forgot to breathe, and my face turned red. After a while, he reluctantly stopped kissing and licked his lips. I gasped for air, almost suffocating. Cyrus looked at me and smiled. Have you never been kissed before? Was this guy mocking me? I blurted out angrily. I've seen all kinds of men. How could I have never been kissed? As soon as I said that, I regretted it. Cyrus stared at me with a dark face. What did you say? I said softly, no, I. Cyrus's hand slipped into my clothes, sending a tingling sensation through my scalp. I couldn't help but let out a faint moan, trembling all over. Aren't you supposed to have seen all kinds of men? Why are you nervous? I hesitated for a moment and angrily retorted, you mocked me first. Have you been with other men before? Before he could finish, my face flushed. No. Cyrus was satisfied with my answer. He whispered softly in my ear, don't be afraid, I'll teach you. His hand slowly roamed, and his lips came closer once again. I felt my mind go blank. Being kissed by him, I lost track of when my top was taken off. His scorching body enveloped me like a fireball. I held him, responding awkwardly. His hand was about to remove my pants when suddenly a warm sensation came from between my legs, and my lower abdomen began to ache. My mind instantly cleared, and I pushed him away. No. Cyrus was interrupted in the midst of his passion and looked somewhat displeased. What's wrong? I furrowed my brows and said, I think I'm getting my period. He left without saying a word. I thought he was angry. Men really are creatures ruled by their lower bodies. I got dressed and took some tissue to the bathroom. Sitting on the toilet, I didn't know what to do for a moment. I had just arrived here and didn't have any sanitary products prepared. At that moment, Cyrus called. I answered the phone, and to my surprise, he had gone to the supermarket. The shelves behind Cyrus were full of sanitary pads. I've never bought these for a woman. Which one do you need? I blushed, realizing he had gone to buy this for me. If anyone found out, I would be so embarrassed. I pointed to the one behind him in embarrassment, that one. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of the door opening. Cyrus knocked on the bathroom door, and I opened it a crack. He handed me the sanitary pads and also passed me a clean nightgown. After changing, I went out, and he was making brown sugar water for me. The bed is ready for you. Hurry and lie down. I lay under the covers, and he handed me the brown sugar water. Is your lower abdomen hurting a lot? I was stunned. How did you know? I saw you frowning just now. Drink it while it's still hot. I held the cup, feeling warm inside. Thank you. After I finished drinking, he tucked me in. Go to sleep quickly.